What's up, y'all? Paradigm Review Show, The Return. Vigilante action revenge films make their return to the channel. This installment is the Equalizer 3. It's the final of 3 trilogy of Anton Fuqua, legendary director, Anton Fuqua, crime director, and legendary action star, also Oscar winner, also legend Denzel Washington. Before we get to the pleasantries, we'll wait for some of you guys to populate while we do the channel news and the film news. Film news, Michael Caine, legendary UK British actor, has retired. Let's get a round of applause for Michael Caine's career, guys. He's
very
monster.
Yeah, and that's very sad, man, because he's such a dope actor, and he just has a new movie actually out at the theaters now. I believe it's possibly called, I will get this right now so I don't butcher it, but I know it's something Escape, which has an interesting premise. It's about a guy breaking out of a residential home to go and honor his war buddies in Normandy, I believe. To pay respects for their sacrifice, etc. Yeah, it's called The Great Escaper. Michael Caine and Glenda Jackson. Glenda Jackson's another well-known UK actor as well. So,
nice.
If you're a Michael Caine fan, definitely go and peep that, because as far as I know, that's one of his last performances. So just respect. I thought his portrayal as Alfred, in the Nolan Batman series was fantastic, man. So
I was just talking about that with Wall Street, who has been on our Fast X roast, and I was like, the Oscar level showed, and like his acting level was so much higher than every other actor in that trilogy, except for maybe Heath Ledger, because it's like, it's a comic book movie. You don't really expect much out of people, and then he brings this like Alfred with like intensity and emotion and all these other things that you're not really seeing in the character pieces for all the other characters. And again, it's a comic movie, so you got multiple heroes, multiple villains, so it's like everybody's kind of fighting for screen time. But without question, he unquestionably stood out in the Dark Knight trilogy.
Oh, he definitely did. He's also known for I think I've maybe only seen this movie once when it's been on TV. I think it's The Swarm, about all the killer bees attacking somewhere, and comedians have often used a famous line he has that he's well known for, and forgive my terrible attempts at a Cockney accent here, but something like "the bloody bees are coming," and they always used to reference. I just realised it sounded like Matt from Australia there more than Cockney, but oh well. The perils of being from the north. Anyway,
the bloody bees are coming. Hey, well, of course. So let's get that. Let's get that one on the swarm of the bees. Let's all get that on our wish list, because that sounds shit. You never know. You might see a review of that popping up on PXF. Channel news. Let's get to the channel news. Super chats are now active. If any of you care to join us, please try the super chats. If I'm not mistaken, they work on regular comments as well as live chat. Memberships are coming soon, now that we're nearing our final 900 subs before our last stretch to 1K. So Gaz and I will be launching memberships in probably somewhere within the next 50 to 100 subs. I did look a little more into it, guys, and it's not quite as complicated as we thought it was. So it just gives you like emojis and more chat options, member only live chats, which we'll be doing. Gaz and I will be doing film reviews, game reviews, basically whatever you guys request that you say that you're interested in seeing. Gaz and I will make some sort of effort to get some sort of show of that content scheduled. So that's basically the direction we're moving in. And then finally, the Zodiac Files episode 4. It's coming very soon. Gabe and I have just been shooting and editing B-roll every day. So you guys should see quite a difference between that and previous things we've done.
And also, folks, if you're ever, if there's ever an area that you're interested in that you would like our perspective on, whether it be from history, movies, anything at all, then let us know. And as things progress, again, from your feedback, we can take that on board and look into one of those areas. And as Ross just said there, and do a show for it or a series. So there's lots we're also working on behind the scenes.
Yep, absolutely. We'll do paranormal, alternative history, ancient aliens, UFOs. There's, regular history. There's most subjects, there's not very few subjects that we won't touch. So without further ado, let's get into this vigilante action piece.
Definitely.
So let's see if you guys have seen it. Well, first and foremost, let's start out like this. Friend of the channel, Mike O'Day, is featured in Equalizer 1, shot in Boston. So go ahead and check our interview out with him here. That's kind of how we got introduced into this stuff. He obviously said Denzel is the man. That's not a news or a breakthrough or breaking news for anybody. That's because Denzel is the man. Equalizer 2 gets out. I'd actually like to get you guys' thoughts on those. If you've seen them both, like leave your thoughts on Equalizer 1 and 2. And then if you saw this one, what you thought of this and how it stacks up to the others. So in a bit of a twist of fate, this is the IMDb synopsis, plot summary. Robert McCall finds himself at home in southern Italy, but he discovers his friends are under the control of local crime bosses. As events turn deadly, McCall knows what he has to do, become his friend's protector by taking on the mafia. Quite similar if you've seen Equalizer 1. So if you haven't seen the trailer, which we're going to have the trailer link below in the description, and we're going to put the trailer in the card there, it should not come as a crazy surprise to you that Equalizer 3 takes place in southern Italy. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but at the same time, it's been out for a little while, so I don't know how much of this is even... He lands in Sicily. He essentially makes his way to the northern mainland of southern Italy, aka the Amalfi Coast, or the central city there is Naples. If you guys do or don't know your Italy and Sicily geography. So none of that is overly technical towards you understanding the plot of this. It's really quite a simple revenge film. I like the way it starts out, Gaz, how he has that intro scene, and then how he ends up in the town of which I believe they call it Altamonte. And just again, not overly complicated. It's an action film, right? I don't need a 45-minute explanation of how he gets there. So wrap it up quick. We know what he's getting to. We know where he's going with it. So just get him down there, So
well, it's a brutal introduction, which does set the theme and tone for the movie. For those who've seen Gomorrah, Saburo, check out Ross's review for Gomorrah earlier with Kara. It pretty much kind of comes across as a Gomorrah Saburo edition of Equalizer, and that is a compliment, not in a bad way. So you have this really brutal and well choreographed opening, which really does set the tone and scene. And right from the outset, folks, y'all, you a little spoiler. After the whole action scene kind of finishes, the camera pulls back and you see a shot of the surrounding environment. I think the hills. That is an indication for how well shot this movie is. The cinematography is absolutely fantastic, as we'll get into. So you already see just how beautifully shot this film is, and I thought that was a really good way to set up the scene, Ross, to set the tone, the mood, what we're expecting, kind of how things unfold, even the exchange with the young kid near the Jeep, who, not to give a spoiler away, even that set up, and that it was really well handled as well.
Very old Italy style. It almost gave you a Godfather vibe of when when Michael goes to Sicily, and it kind of, so parallel what Gaz said there about Gomorrah. If you're a Gomorrah fan, first of all, go watch my review of Gomorrah season 3 with Kara. If you're a Gomorrah fan, you have to watch this. I feel like you have to watch this if you're a Gomorrah fan. Again, Gomorrah takes place in Naples. A little bit, some notes for my boy NYC Crime Spot. I hope we get you on soon for the Taxi Driver review. Little breakdown of how crime works in Italy. You guys are familiar with this overly publicized term of the East Coast New York Italian crime families, mafia, which is traced back to Sicily. And Equalizer 3 does briefly follow that through line, but it veers off of it from Sicily to something else. When he ends up in Naples, the crime family, or rather organization, which controls southern Italy mainland and out of Naples, is actually called the Camorra. So you hear people saying mafia. Oh, you ever been to Naples? You got to watch out for the mafia over there. Like, mafia is not a thing in Naples the way mafia is specifically a Sicilian origin. And that's why in Goodfellas, when Joe Pesci's character gets shot. He's the only one out of the three of them who could be a made man for the Sicilian mafia, because he's the only one with 100% roots tracing back to Sicily. And then De Niro and Ray Liotta's characters are both Irish Italian. So they can't, you know what I mean? So that's I'm trying to break down for people what the difference between mafia and Camorra is. Camorra is specifically ran out of Naples. And it's a much more international drug-oriented trafficking. If you need an in-depth breakdown, guys, suggest you go watch Camorra or read the book, because that goes very in-depth. For purposes of understanding Equalizer 3, you don't need to know that. You just need to know that when he shows up in southern Italy, in Naples, he's going to be fighting against the Camorra. Yeah. So it's just like, you can't really paint it with a blanket statement like, oh, the mafia, blah, blah. It's a totally different organization.
Yeah, and there's a documentary as well on Netflix. Sadly, I cannot recall the name, but I'm quite sure if you just search Naples on Netflix, and it's all about what Ross just said. So I thought that was quite an interesting parallel that they did with Equalizer 3, especially as this has kind of been a thing in the headlines for the last couple of years, which might be lost on some people because it didn't always get reported very far internationally. But this has been a thing that's been happening in southern Italy, obviously, for a long time, but more recently in the headlines as well.
And then ultimately, you could think of the Camorra like a spider web with connections into Spain and London and the UK. And that's why Camorra is so interesting, because it actually shows the lead character, the actor's name is Salvatore Sassa. He goes to London, and he has an episode where he speaks English, which is like nuts, because for the first 3 seasons the show is 100% in southern. Actually, if you want to get specific, the Sicilian dialect and the southern Naples dialect, those are 2 completely different dialects than Italian. If you really want to get into the weeds on it, for people that think like, oh, I'm sure everybody in Italy just speaks the same language in every town, like actually no. But anyway, we'll get off that. We'll get back into the Equalizer. So the way that they set up the town, it looks much like the Amalfi Coast, where there's I'm trying to think of the name of I think it was Salerno was the name of so I was basically telling Gazzo I was in those towns, and I was trying to figure out where the church. I was trying to definitely figure out man, which town did they shoot this in? And I'm trying to find the exact locations, but it's extremely difficult. I love the steps of how he is learning. I don't think it's much to say that you can take a guess that Roberto McCall's character sustains an injury at some point in this film. If you've seen the first 2 films, I don't think that's a much of a spoiler for you to guess that. Well, ultimately, he's recovering with a doctor. He spends time recovering. So every day he walks the town, of which there's thousands of stone steps of the ancient stairs in the ancient church steps. So he just kind of follows it. It's really a character piece as much as Taxi Driver or Joker is a character piece. What I really want to hammer home for our viewers about Equalizer 3 is a lot of what me and Gaz said about John Wick Chapter 4, where, oh no, it's Paradigm Review Show, it's PXF. I know what Ross and Gaz watched this time. They watched another vigilante action revenge film where some guy goes gun crazy, runs and guns for 2 hours, and mows down the rest of the movie, which, yes, that's actually true. But in these last couple that we've reviewed, they've actually differed from all the ones before them. And what we were saying about John Wick 4 was the cinematography, the lighting, the sound, the editing, and once again, the music. The best parts of the Equalizer 3, this is what was so crazy. This was an actual film. It was actually cinema. It wasn't the stereotypical cliche vigilante action revenge film. Anton Fuqua did a bunch of things to differ this from all of the other genre pieces, and that is incredible music. The cinematography, it's probably the best in any vigilante action film I've ever seen, only on par with John Wick Chapter 4 because of the Japan sequences and everything me and Gaz said last time. But the Italy backdrop, if you like movies filmed in Europe, if you like movies filmed in the Mediterranean and southern Italy, you basically have to watch this for the landscapes, like Gaz was saying. Notice we haven't gotten into plot. We haven't gotten into action. We still haven't spoke on any of these other aspects yet. Because it's that good.
Yeah, and it has so many positives. And just to support what you said there, people will think, oh, yeah, all these dudes ever watches action and martial arts and blah, 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 blah. I don't like anything else. We said, we will look at other films and we will give you our take on it. either way. You hear us criticize the MCU, and people think, all right, you're completely hostile to the MCU. You don't like any comic book characters. Actually,
no,
we
make
do.
A good one, we'll say it.
Yeah, we don't like what's happened with how those characters have been depicted, and how we feel there's too much reliance on filler effects, not enough acting. And that's a perfect excuse
100%.
for me to say, before we even get any further with this, if you like cinema how it used to be, with throwback, where it's about having a patient build-up, building character, scene, premise, connecting it all together, ultimately rewarding the audience, then go and watch this film. Even if you're not the biggest action fan in the world, it is an example of how to shoot a film in every aspect, even the way how our characters are introduced to each other. For example, Ross mentioned, yes, Robert McCall gets injured again. But the way it's done, it's to introduce him to the local officer of the Carabinieri, who are kind of a bit like the Guardia de Civil in España, a bit like them. And
to introduce him to the town, really, but as Gaz said, it does it through the proxy of two main characters, which is Gio and the doctor that Gio brings him to.
Yeah, and
great point.
Yeah, and it's done really well. And as Ross said, it introduces us to the doctor, who is played by Remo Geroni, Dr. Licenzio Alicio. Yeah, and when you meet him, and here's the thing: what stands out already is the level of acting. A lot of these actors are unknown outside of Europe, and me and Ross were talking about this the other day, and we feel they definitely out-acted a lot of the well-known, established Hollywood higher echelons. They really did. Also, if you want to see something, as Ross said, that's filmed in the Mediterranean, that's not in New York, London, or Paris, no disrespect to John Wick 4, I gave it a really high score, but we see somewhere different. And another thing I noticed, which was quite faithful to the region, was the biker gangs. We'll get into talking about the character
that plays into Gomorrah and Naples, Gomorrah as well. It's a very the common thing in the modern era, where the street level biker gangs, and just the way they show the levels of the crime organization,
Yeah, and it's very authentic to the Mediterranean as well, where those type of biker gangs are prevalent, in Italy, Spain, Greece, not in Western Europe and America. We have more the traditional, bikers, as you would see, not the kind depicted in the Mediterranean. So they even do a very, I feel, good, faithful representation of that. Going further even to the local football team, for those who call it football, Naples, where Diego Maradona famously played for them. So everything is there, and this is before we even get into, as Ross said, the plot and anything else. So there's a solid meal served up there for you already.
I think Gaz made the point best, which is that this is an action film for non-action fans. You want to show this to people who maybe almost never watch action or never watch action. Look, action movies are good, as Gaz said. Proper shot, setting up, proper editing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought the music was incredible. One thing I saw another review said was the sound editing. I didn't even think of that, but that was really good as well. Going back to that, what I call the dream sequence at the beginning, guys, it was kind of that whole thing of like the reverse filming, as you said, like showing you what happens or showing you what happens. Did that give you like a Memento vibe or anything like that? Because it was kind of like a backwards deconstruction of the scene, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what scene you're on about. It actually didn't at the time, but now you actually make that reference. Yes, I can see it. I think I was just in awe just of how well it was shot, honestly, and seeing it on the screen. I thought, man, it blew me away. It's been a long time since I've seen a film shot that well.
It almost reminded me of like Boondock Saints, how they do like those opposite, like basically it happens and then it shows him go to the crime scene and try to repiece it together. It was almost like, Fuqua kind of reached in his bag and did one of those, and it was freaking awesome, man. So he takes out this essentially Sicilian crime boss, which you can imagine spirals the situation out of control when he ends up in southern Italy. Gio brings him to the doctor, and as Gas said, Gio's Carabinieri, so he could have reported that further up. But the problem is, like, most guys at his level know that there's like some corruption involved with the Carabinieri working with the Camorra. So like Gio's conscious of that. So instead of bringing Roberto to like the hospital or reporting it in, being a cop, he brings him to the local doctor who's like saved like, you know, members of his family, whatever, you know, bunch of backdrop there that they'll explain to you guys in the movie. And it's just sick. The town is so sick. You know, even the hand-to-hand. So I guess, you know, the big deal is like Denzel's age. You know, I guess the question would be like, is it realistic for Denzel to be kind of pulling those hand-to-hand kind of Krav Maga moves at his age? And the only criticism I would say is it doesn't matter. You don't need it to be. It's just it's Denzel, and his acting carries the whole film. So you don't need to focus on like what is realistic or what can he do at his age or not. It will never occur to you.
Yeah, and to actually kind of put that myth to bed by people thinking just because a person's still a certain age, they can't fight if they've been well trained and well experienced. There was a bully who challenged a retired professional boxer, and this guy, you know, was well in his 80s, and the guy knocked him out. Got in the ring. The guy was, you know, again, it's on YouTube. You can see this, and people think because this is an old guy, you know, he's not moving around in his footwork, but he still knows how to hit. He's got it. He still knows where to place his shots, and he takes this guy apart. So I can believe it from the sense of, look, this guy's being trained to a deadly and expert level that is not going to go away. Of course, he might not be the sharp as, you know, earlier on in his career, but he's still going to know what works. So I would think he is going to be more about being fast, direct, and disabling as quick as possible, which is definitely highlighted when we get to. I'll let you introduce us to this particular scene, rather than me drop a spoiler.
So there's two brothers that run the local chapter of the Camorra. Yeah. One is in charge, and the other one, the older one, is kind of punking the younger one to run the street gang. Yeah. And needless to say, disagreements ensue between Roberto and said parties, and Roberto may or may not confront them in an alleyway. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to give away too much because it's grimy. But the only other comparison I would say is, Gaz said, how about older kung fu masters? You ever seen like Bruce Lee's mentor, like the Ip Man, and those older guys? You know, even Donnie Yen is up there in age now. I just watched a Jackie Chan movie where he's 69. He was still doing stunts in it. So you ever seen an older kung fu master that slowed down much? Would you want to test one of those guys? So it's a similar concept, you know?
Yeah, and the thing is, before anyone says, oh, well, I can't pronounce his name, but there's a Chinese MMA guy who's been famous for challenging a lot of what they call the Bullshido masters in China. He's really old, you know, old dudes, but they're in a different category to. Theirs is more Mortal Kombat fantasy based, I guess, where Ross is referring to those that are definitely more practical orientated and have trained notable martial artists and fighters. I'm talking about like Wing Chun style or any speed-based style, you know what I mean? Yeah, and I can go myself from my own training. You know, there's dudes well up there who can absolutely splatter us. So
still have the hand speed. So I think you know, if you guys saw Equalizer 1 and 2, like what makes McCall so like grimy, like his improvisation of using objects, you know, in the fight that are just random objects, or you know, with the speed. Things like that. He does some crazy disarms, of course. It's like, I don't want to give it all away. Like, you have to watch it. If you like 1 and 2, you like 3. I mean, I think we both rated 3 higher than 2 for, you know, various reasons.
We did. And just before the scene, Ross was trying not to spoil, and I'll try not to spoil it as well. And I really will have to behave, because that's one of my bad habits at times, is dropping spoilers unintentionally. But this won't give too much away. It's not the action part. I'll just say there is a very good kind of setup in a local cafe before that scene. And Andrea Dodero, who plays Marco Quarenta, who's like the junior villain, who's the brother of Vincent, who's leader of the Camorra. Marco is, you know, the head of the bikie gang that's essentially enforcing.
Yeah, they do the collections.
Yeah, do the collections.
Level, squeeze the businesses.
Yeah, If you've enjoyed Warrior as well, review of that coming soon. You'll like this also. But I thought the actor Andrew Daddario was very good as a junior villain. I thought he was good in portraying an enforcer for the Camorra. He was threatening. He had the presence. And there's one thing this film doesn't shy away from. When Marco is enforcing the will of the Camorra, it's very brutal. They don't shy away from it. They show you he doesn't care who it is.
Citizen.
Inflicting, I thought, man, that was a very good way of giving us, the audience, sort of showing us what life is like under the threat of the Camorra.
Agreed. Yeah, Gaz is 100% right about that. I mean, I've read, as you guys know, I go deep. I mean, I read the book of, I think it's Robert Savino, that all of that Gamora concept is based on his original book. And some of that stuff goes back to late 80s and late 90s. So when you see Gamora recreating this stuff now, you got to think Gamora is recreating this. I mean, obviously new things happen, you know what I mean? It evolves, but a lot of those concepts are, you know, based off of the 80s and the 90s. Yeah, I mean, there's just so the other supporting actors, you know, there's a couple American actors, you know, they're not great. They don't matter because they're very average side characters, so it really does not affect the plot. The relationship is really about Robert. The overall theme and concept is really about Robert's relationship with the town, as Gaz is saying, and them. You know, as he's recovering, we'll just say it like this: as he's recovering, he goes around the town and he's going to these cafes and he's going into shops and he's meeting people and he's like becoming more and more close with them. And then he also sees how the Gamorra enforcers treat the town people, and he starts like noticing things that he just doesn't like. And it's always just escalating to the point of, like Gaz said, of them oppressing the townspeople, to how much Roberto is a witness to how much is Roberto's limit. Because if you saw Equalizer 1 and 2, we all know that Robert has a limit to the amount of you know, illegal activity that he's going to allow around him, that he, you know, first person witnesses. So it ultimately is a build. I thought the tension was very good, Gaz, between Robert and Marco. The restaurant scene, there's various other exchanges, but just very good build up, as Gaz. It's a lot of build up. This is not John Wick 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. There's some short bursts of very energetic, explosive, intense action scenes, but there's a lot of intense build up in between. But it's done very, very well with music and cinematography and things that flow the scenes into one another. You know what I mean? It's very good pacing.
Yeah, it's setting up, as you said, the tension, the emotion, showing your relationships involved. It's kind of like, this is a place that Robert McCall feels happy in. Mm-hmm. He feels comfortable and at peace.
For the first time in his life.
Yeah, and then sadly, something happens, what we're seeing with the local Camorra, where it's like, man, and you've got this patient build up, like, when's he going to snap? When's he going to snap? When is he going to do something?
It's going to happen.
For example, there is a scene, spoiler alert, folks, with the local butchers, fishmongers, sorry. Yeah, and that is an indication, and there's kind of a bit of a romantic interest as well. So it's, is this going to threaten his romantic?
Shop owner.
Yeah. So all of that plays into it, and also it's the subtle kind of looks the characters have, the exchanges as well, the glances. When you see Marco carrying out his enforcement duties and he's leaving the scene, and there's that subtle exchange between Robert McCall and Marco. Like, Marco's wondering, who are you? Why are you unfazed by me? I'm afraid. What are you doing here? You're obviously a stranger. You know, you're American or British or whatever. And
they face off multiple times.
They do.
Definitely build tension.
And I like the way, as you just said in the cafe, where that scene is, it kind of reaches. It's like the penultimate scene before the climax, where I'll just say there's a conversation, and that's all I'll say.
A stern conversation.
Yeah. But the tension and atmosphere, just absolutely nails it. Dare I go? There'll be some people who probably might fiercely disagree with me here. Dare I go as far? I'm going to dare, actually. Do you know what, man? It even had just slight Godfather 2 vibe. Slightly, you could see that.
I thought you were going to say that the whole time you were saying that. And as you were saying it, we were both coming to the same conclusion. 100%. I mean, the Italian restaurant. It's a bit of a trope in Mafia Camorra movies, Italian crime movies, but nonetheless, no. And it might just be Fuqua nodding the homage to like, come on, everybody knows how sick that scene is.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do it with Denzel, and it's nothing wrong with it. You're shooting in Southern Naples. I'm gonna allow it. I'm gonna allow it. They get no doubt, Evie. I'll see what I can do. But Beeson's always welcome. Yeah, I'll try to get that on soon. We're just doing some film reviews now. Equalizer 3, go check it out.
all right, shout out to Evie.
So I agree. I even want to speed it up a little bit to ultimately when they kind of have that big face-off in the town square. I don't want to say what happens when Enzio snaps, but you know the scene when Enzio snaps.
Yeah, I do, and that's awesome. And that's kind of like a part 2 because we see an earlier scene very similar to that. And oh man, it's brutal stuff. And then that is continued, where again there's that altercation and confrontation, which is all about leading the audience, I feel, into kind of setting up the last act for what's going to happen, why Robert McCall is going to do something. Everything is there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't really think there's too much more to say for it. Like, if you guys like 1 and 2, you should definitely go see it. Even the way, like, there's just so many little awesome moments, but like that ending scene, the final celebration, like when I walked out with my friends, we were just like, hold on. They're going to have this party at the end now. Like, and this guy just like dispatched hundreds of people. This guy's a serial killer.
yeah, exactly. I do want to. Yeah, I think that's when Naples have won. We've won the Serie A championship. It'll be and they're all celebrating everything. Yeah. And it's such a stark contrast and how he's like being accepted into the community, and there's like all this craziness. And before that, the whole kind of last, I guess, 30-40 minutes is Robert McCall doing what Robert McCall does best. I do want to shout out the actor who plays the leader of the Camorra, Vincent Quarenta. That's the name of the mob boss. Sorry, the actor is Andrea Scarduzio, and he is excellent. And what is interesting, folks, when he gets confronted by McCall, he does a really good job of showing us this kind of transition in his feelings, in his emotion, how he's been this really ruthless, brutal mob boss, and then when he meets McCall, and just saying as events progress, he experiences true fear. And I thought the actor did such a good job of showing this both physically with his body language, but then with his facial expressions as well. So I think, like Ross said earlier, don't mistake this for being, it's Ross and Gaz just watching the usual action movies. That's all they ever watch, people shooting each other all the time and revenge movies. This really does have another level to it. There's depth, there's character, as we've said, there's emotion, and the acting from the Italian actors especially, I think is one of the strongest points of this movie, aside from the way it was shot and the score.
100%. I agree with every sentiment Gaz said. So the Italian actors, like, we were both quite impressed by their acting. Keep in mind now you're talking about multi-language bilingual actors, because many of them are going back and forth between English with Robert and Denzel's actually speaking some of his Italian, which is awesome. Basically what Gaz said. It's not going to be like, I don't want to watch a movie set in Europe because these unknown foreign actors are not going to be as good as Hollywood. No, that's not the case. In fact, many points and scenes they're better, as Gaz and I had said. So man, it's a great film. It's not a run and gun film like Gaz was just saying. It's not like the John Wicks. It's not just never ending shootouts. There's probably 3 or 4 kind of action exchanges, and they're not, they're some of them are actually kind of shorter than others. A couple of more like short bursts. It's what I would say about Anton Fuqua's style and this film is it's a stylized, vigilante action revenge film, and much like how we were saying John Wick 4 is stylized. This is the evolution of vigilante action revenge film, where it does have very good film editing, you know, just the shots and the cinematography and the shots, the shooting. It's just like, you got to think Antoine Fuqua is a legend. So he's not just setting up the camera and then letting Denzel and those guys do pyrotechnics and prop guns, you know, is much more goes into his angles and just how he shows you Italy, you know. It's almost like a first-person style of shooting, a bit different than Gomorrah, because you actually he kind of in certain parts in the little you know, the that underpass that they kept walking through, guys. He kept like in the shadows. He kept filming Robert and like just certain little things, like the way he shoots over Robert's back, like you feel like you're walking through those little squares and those stairs with him. You know, like he really gets in close. I don't know many other films have done that, but it was awesome, man.
Yeah, I think he wanted to engross the audience into the world, and I thought he was very respectful to the culture as well, and I think he wanted us to feel that, for us to have that escape when we're sitting in the cinema, to be entertained, to watch a good solid film, and I thought he did that excellently. I mean, I guess to sum it up, my point would be it's an excellent film that demonstrates all you really need is a nice solid plot, patience, location, a balance between action and dialogue, and it does provide you with a worthwhile film that is rewarding for the admission price, a throwback to how cinema used to be. This isn't all about, oh, we'll just put all this CGI, filler effects, have some cheese, cringy dialogue because
practical effects.
Yeah. There's patience there. There's been time taken to do this right, to give us a worthwhile, solid film that we can sink our teeth into. Even if you're not an action movie fan, as Ross said, and he alluded to, saying this is a film that's been made not for action fans, and that's no disingenuous remark there. Go and give it a try if you're a bit frustrated at the moment and you're thinking, man, there's not much out. You won't be disappointed.
Absolutely, it's still a hard R. It still does have action. It still has the violence. It's bloody. You know, you don't get to see too many of these hard R. They don't shy away from headshots, guys. There's no. It's not PG-13 where the gun shoots and then the camera shifts. And it's Antoine Fuqua. He's going to show you the body blown into a billion pieces. You know, he doesn't care. They give him an R rating, and he's like, "Yeah, cool, I'll take the R," and then he just submits it. He's not like, please edit my work." He's not that kind of director, which is cool. You know, it's definitely stylized. What stands out between Equalizer 3 and the other Equalizers? The story. Whoever wrote this one, I think this maybe has the best story out of all three films.
Agreed.
Quick criticism of Equalizer 2 is it starts out with like the European mafia thing, but then it segues back to his like origin about how his old, like, you know, so it's like it kind of veers off, and it's like that always made no sense to me in Equalizer 2. This one, they just double down on it. They're like, yeah, he's stuck in Italy and he not going to get out till he figures it out, you know, and that's cool. You know, that's cool. Sometimes, you know, if a character that's as capable, skill level wise, as Gaz was saying, and combat level wise, as Robert McCall, you want to see him get out of those tough spots. And Antoine Fuqua and the writer puts him in those tough spots of the Equalizer 3. So you have to see how long the Gomorrah is going to strangle this town, as Gaz was saying, before McCall hits his limit to fight back. And it's awesome, you know. It maybe, you know, it's not a run and gun film like Equalizer 1 is. In Equalizer 1, he set up the whole building and he did the whole run and gun sequence. It's quite different, you know.
Yeah, and what is good as well, when I come out of the theater, and I was saying to my friends at the time, I said, and we were talking about this the other day, myself and you, epic. Oh man, we were chatting about this earlier. Freestyle, man, the locations are dope. It's not. What's good is they haven't done London, Paris, or New York. I know there's Paris and John Wick 4. The location's superb, man. It's got that authentic Naples feel. I was saying to Ross earlier in the review, right from the opening scene, which is pretty brutal, when the camera pans back and you see the surrounding hills and everything in the locality, you know, when you see it, like, man, this is quite special. It's the look, the shooting, the way it was shot, man. The cinematography is absolute fire. So definitely, man, it's up there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't even shoot Palermo, Sicily, which is the capital
Yeah,
city, which you'd expect. It was like when they went to Sicily, it was like a little, like a
yeah.
random villa, like one of those vineyards. It was just a random vineyard farm, a la the Godfather, backdrops that Gaz was talking about.
There's another scene I've remembered, Ross. I think it's about halfway. Spoiler alert, folks. I'll just say outside the cop station, and you know what happens there. But even the way that was shot, pans back and you see the entire cops there, people going about the business, the buildings. Even that was really shot well. My
Everything,
dad,
the cities,
yeah,
the small towns, like
yeah.
Gaz was saying.
Yeah, I thought it was fire. I liked it better than two. Freestyle. I
Same.
was just about to say I come out of the movie theater saying to my friends, "Do you know, man? I think I actually like this better than two. I thought it was dope. Really, what really was."
The thing about two was it had that pinnacle scene at the end, and when he took them
Yeah,
on to the town, and like that scene was nuts. That scene was fire, but that was by far the high point of the movie.
yeah,
Whereas this, that intro sequences beginning, some of that stuff that happens in the middle is pretty crazy. And then obviously a nuts ending in this one. I don't know. I mean, given that this had like the European stuff, I might be open to running this one back, because I don't think I watched two ever again after I saw it in the theater. I think I did see one multiple times. So I just wanted to give some throwback reviews for you guys. So part 1, I had given a 9 back in the day. Part 2, I had given a 7. So what is your rating for part 3, guys?
Oh man, I think I have to give it a 9, a high 9. For everything that we've said in the review. Excellent acting, excellent locations, excellent cinematography, the patience, the build, the way the characters are introduced to each other, the tension, the atmosphere, relationships that were both fostered and developed, and even the kind of subtle hints that you saw, as we said, the exchanges between Marco and McCall when they were glancing at each other, then Vincent and Robert later. So it has to be a high 9.
I mean, I think what Gaz was saying, like Italian culture is a very body language driven communication culture, and then a very, like, even in Gomorrah, they have like a lot of mannerisms that you don't see anywhere else but Southern Italy. And I think Gaz said like the Italian actors really brought that authenticity to it wasn't like Robert McCall shows up in Italy, but really they shot it in Los Angeles, and then it's like a bunch of like Southern Italian dudes with tans speaking bad Italian. Like that's the you didn't get that kind of like Hollywood BS. It almost didn't even feel like a Hollywood film. I'm going to be real, just because the fact that they shot it in Southern Italy, and you got Fuqua's camera and you got Denzel, but you don't have some massive Hollywood cast of 500 actors, like Dark Knight,
Yeah, it's as I say, it's almost like those kind of novels my dad used to read, those like action thrillers, crime thrillers, where it can be some dude. For example, I know opinions may differ on the
movies.
Or
whatever.
Yeah, well, he actually he used to read loads of them, man, and he actually he was a big fan of Jack Reacher, and I know it's debatable on the films what people probably have different opinions on them, but he used to always tell me like. He'd often be trying to mind his own business somewhere, like Robert McCall is in this, and then he'd get sucked into something, and that's why he liked it. So the only criticism, I guess we can say, and this is a real man, one, just so people don't think, oh, these two are just sat here fanboying nonstop.
Watching another masculine
Yeah. All these guys, it's like his action.
Denzel's gonna shoot everybody in Italy, bro. It's gonna be sick.
Yeah.
Guys, gotta get down there.
Yeah, same freestyle as well, definitely, man. The only thing, I guess, and we were chatting about this off air as well, is I think the Italian actors, they could have spoke Italian more than they did, just to show us that it actually, I know it is there and it's really authentic, but just speak Italian just more than they did in the film.
I think you and I would agree, because I'm like a big Gomorrah film. I watch like a lot of Italian movies, a lot of Italian shows, but I think for the average, again, think of the average British moviegoer, and I guess you guys might be more exposed to more foreign language than than us, given you guys are in Europe. You know what I mean? But the average,
the same, bro. We're cousins here. They're just the same.
But that's the problem, though. The average American fan base is like, well, I want to see Denzel speak English because I'm American. You know what I mean? So I think that's why they gave Denzel those little Italian phrases. So they're like,
just every night,
forth with the Italians. And like, I agree with you, but I think the average American fan is like, well, I don't want to go see Denzel speak Italian for 75% of a movie. It's just going to get lost in translation. Even if a movie is doing this the whole time, it's still going to get lost in translation. But for me, I could give this anything from like a 7 to a 7.5. It's freaking good. I would say you guys get down there. Action, crime, thriller. It's badass. I like it. If you're a Gamora fan, you have to go. I don't see how you can not. So I don't know how much longer it'll be in movies. I think we have we're about to wrap. Any final thoughts, guys? You want to wrap?
Yeah, there's one. Just as I said, if you're a bit frustrated with movies at the moment and you're looking for something that's got that world building, is nicely balanced and paced, then go see it. Is it the most revolutionary ever for that genre? No, but it's authentic, it's faithful to it, and it is a good movie. I do quickly want to shout out another people may like. It's called The Creator, and that's not bad either. So that's one you may want to go and see, especially for the blatantly obvious 40K scene where there's a tank, which is more or less like a Land Raider in all but name. So that's not bad either. But yeah, just go and give it a chance, folks. It's well worth it.
I would say it might be the most stylized Vigilante action ever made. Just certain things done with the new kind of film, new cameras, new editing style. I think Fuqua really pushed the editing, which came across. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I could see people giving it a 8.5 to a 9. What did you give it? Freestyle? Would you rate it? And other than that, we have the Expendabellans Boar roast coming up very soon. Look out for that. That's going to be the next show. EX4 roast, and then we have Killers of the Flower Moon. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else on the horizon. So if you have any suggestions, movies, TV, film, games of us to review, leave it in the comments below. Let's try out the super chats, guys. Try them out in the comments. Try it out in the live chat. Super chats are live. Memberships coming soon. You can pick up the comic on Amazon. The Dark Rift Volume 1, Escape from Earth, Zodiac Files Episode 4 coming soon. I think that's everything. Yeah,
Freestyle's an 8 to 8+. Do you know, man, I gave it a 9, and that's probably I think it was only Joker that I rated higher, and possibly there was another movie. John Wick 4, maybe I gave a 9. So I think it's probably only been 3 or 4 movies that we've ever done that.
I was going to say that about your rating. Like, holy crap, Gaz is usually at like a 5. So, damn, whether you like action or not, if you were just surprised at his rating, you might want to just go see it and find out why Gaz rated so high. If you're a Denzel fan, you have to go. If you're a football fan,
definitely.
You have to go. Shout out to everybody who came through Epic Freestyle EV.
Peace to y'all.
Have more shows coming soon. The Cooper Chronicles will be coming back. There will be a lot more updates. So in the meantime, like, subscribe, share. Definitely run the likes up for us, guys. Run up the super chats, and memberships coming soon. EX4 roast next show. We're out.
Definitely. Peace.